Hello, welcome to the self-learning platform by Dr. Sushma Singh. Today we start Unit 6, State, Market and Social Movements. Let us have introduction about the unit. You will study in different units of this course collective action or the social movements of various groups, agrarian classes, working class, women, Dalit, OBC, environmental and ecological groups, etc., have become more prominent in India, especially since the last 3 decades of the 20th century. Though such movements had occurred earlier also, with changes in the society and economy of India, the number of social groups taking recourse to collective action increases. Their emergence has coincided with the latest pace of the globalization, changing statuses of the state and market. These developments have given rise to debate in the academic and political discourse about the relationships between state, market, and social movements. These also have generated a debate about the changes in the nature and roles of the state and market. The debate raises some questions. Has the nature of the social movements changed or is changing with the expansion of market? What kinds of new social movements are emerging? Has the state become weak and withdrawn from its responsibility for social transformation? Do the market forces dominate and govern the state? Are social classes getting fragmented and lose in their capacity to organize and dominate? Has class base of the social movements declined with the rise of market, etc.? This unit seeks to explain relationship among the state, market, and social movements. The next point is changing status of the Indian state. The first is state in the post-independence period. The trajectory of state in India during post-independence period can be divided in two phases for the purpose of understanding its relationship to the market and social movements. These are pre-1990 and post-1990, the phase preceding the present form of liberalization and the phase coinciding with it. Such demarcation is helpful in comprehending the relationship among them, especially because the issue about the relative weakness, strength, relevance, or irrelevance of state and market has become more spectacular with the hold of the new phase of liberalization, that is, since the 1970s. The pre-1990s phase can further be subdivided into era of dominance or autonomy of the state, identified with the Nehru Mahalanobis model of development of the 1950s and mid 1960s and the pace between late 1960s and 1980s. During the first 2 decades following independence, the state was given a dominant place in the development model. The national and international circumstances which prevailed at that time necessitated a accord such opposition to the state. The division of the country into India and Pakistan, the consequent communal riots, influx of refugees after partition, merger of 565 princely states into the Indian Union, the division of the world in two ideological opposite blocs, the American and Russian, known to be involved in the Cold War, were the conditions which motivated the national leadership to adopt a development model in which state would find a dominant place. Founded at the initiative of the then Prime Minister Jawaharlal Nehru and P.C. Mahalanobis, a development economist, this model, which gave prominence to the state, was known as Nehru Mahalanobis model of development. It sought to build India a strong nation state, showing the unity of diverse regional, economic, cultural, and regional groups. The market was supposed to depend on the state for its existence. It had to be regulated and get the permission of the state through licenses. It gave prominence to the state organs, especially bureaucracy, which came to known as the permanent government or steel frame, state planning, mixed economy, non-alignment in the international relations. This model envisaged that it would lead to overall development of the country, eliminate the differences and hierarchy based on social cleavages, caste, religion, language, race, reason, and economic disparity, will augment the economic growth, remove poverty, etc. In the macroeconomy, it gave preference to the industry over the agriculture or the rural sector. However, the state introduced several measures which affected different classes and groups. These groups participated in the collective actions in the coming decades. In the rural areas, land reforms, abolition of landlordism, and making the tillers as owner of the land, agricultural extension schemes, community development programs, and several welfare measures were introduced by the state in different states. Though these schemes were not completely successful, these had improved the conditions of peasantry to varying degrees. The most forceful and effective intervention of the state in the rural economy was in the 1960s through the Green Revolution, the HVY, high yielding variety of seeds, fertilizers, and inputs, seeds, machinizations, etc., in the selected area of the country. The period from the late 1960s till 1980 saw the deinstitutionalization and personalization of the state machinery, especially during the reign of Indira Gandhi. With some interruption, this phase continued till the 1980s. This included period of emergency more than 4 years, rule at the center by different non-Congress political formations, the Janata Party, the Janata Dal government, and the government headed by Charan Singh and Chandrasekhar. The decline of the state institutions, which started during the prime ministership of Indira Gandhi, continued even during the later regimes. The post 1990 phase, that is the era of liberalization from the 1990s, has seen the decline in the state authority following the introduction of structural adjustment program introduced by the Narasimha Rao government in 1991. This phase is marked by the parallel rise of the market force, civil society organizations, which have eroded the monopoly of the state. Now, the second one is discourse on the Indian state. Two perspectives have been followed analysis the Indian state, its nature, autonomy, and efficacy. These are Marxian and the non-Marxian. The latter can further be subdivided into development or modernization, systematic, and neoliberal perspectives. The Marxian perspective is followed by academicians and different communist parties. The non-Marxian scholars include the developmentalist or modernist or behaviorist like Rajni Kothari and Maurice John, I. Rodolph and S. H. Rodolph, and neoliberals like P. N. Bhagwati, Srinivasan, Padma Desai, V. K. Ramaswamy, and B. R. Shenoy. Developmentalists use political system in place of the state. However, in his later writings, Rajni Kothari used state, not political system. While the Marxists consider the Indian state as a representative of the propertied class, landlord, bourgeois, feudal class, and foreign multinationals, the neoliberals find it inefficient. The emphasis of the Marxist is to understand its class character. The neoliberals find the state inefficient, bureaucratic, rule oriented, detrimental to the growth and progress in the pre 1991 pace, the present pace of liberalization. Their critique of the Indian state focuses on its two features: development planning and state intervention. According to the neoliberal critics of the state, the Indian state during its existence in the post independence period has not been able to achieve the growth nor has been able to remove the poverty. The pre-liberalization phase pre-1991 was considered by the neoliberals like Bhagwati as the pace of slow rate of growth and per capita income, and as pace of weak performance regarding India's own aspirations. The neoliberals rated India's performance inferior to the performance of the East Asian countries. They argued that the India's performance improved in the post-liberalization era in relation to the earlier phase. It is because of the prominent role which the market has come to play and decline in the dominance of the state. However, some of them believe that state intervention has been successful in transforming traditional agriculture, but there has been stagnation in India's industry during the 1960s and 1970s. The Marxist scholar finds the neoliberal critique of planning, state intervention, and states dismal performance in the pre-liberalization era unconvincing. They refute the arguments of the neoliberals on all accounts. The representatives of the Marxian perspective are T.J. Bayer, Prabhat Patnaik, and Amritya Kumar Bagchi. Deepak Nair argues that the contrary to the argument of neoliberals like Bhagwati, there was revival of industry before the liberalization phase, that is, the late 1970s and 1980s. The Marxists, however, have their own arguments to criticize the planned economy and the Nehru Mahalobis model. Unlike the neoliberals, they do not overlook the contribution of the planning and state intervention. They do not dismiss Trout core of planning and interventionist state as responsible for an unmitigated economic disaster. They argue that the liberalization has not brought down poverty, rather it has increased it. T.J. Byers, unlike the neoliberals who do not see improvement in the economic conditions of the people in the pre-1991 era, holds that there was a period of which saw economic growth and removal of the incidents of poverty, that is mid 1970 and the 1980s. The development planning is still considered relevant by them in the pace of liberalization, though broadly following the non-Marxist perspective. Ally Rudolph and S. H. Rudolph, in their book In the Pursuit of Lakshmi, the political economy of the Indian state, situate the Indian state in the context of politics in India. They argue that the politics in India is not a class politics, it is centrist politics. The state stands as a third factor between the private capital and organized labor, as the organized labor form very small proportion of the labor population in comparison to the unorganized labor. The class politics in India is absent. It is centrist politics as a third factor. State negotiates between labor and capital as an autonomous body. Rudolph and Rudolph also indicate the Indian state as a socialist state, invoked socialism in pursuit of public sector and state planning. Byers terms it as empty political rhetoric. According to Rodolph and Rodolph, the state is related to two types of politics: demand politics and command politics. The demand group need leadership, ideology, and articulation of collective good in order to enter into collective action. These collective actions are social movements. In command politics, the state as a third actor not only provides order, justice, and security, enhances social goods and benefits, and reduces and eliminates social cost, but also directly commands enough resources to be self-determining in variety of policy arena and historical context. The scholars who followed development or modernization perspective did not use the concept of state to study the polity of countries, especially decolonized or developing or third world countries. They sought to understand the institutions and processes of the political system. The main argument of these scholars was that different constituents of the political system conflict and adjust with each other, and in the process the system remains resilient and maintains itself. This framework has been criticized for the confining politics to the political elite and thus neglecting the ordinary people. Besides, it did not attempt to link politics to its historical legacy and imperialist forces. However, by the 1970s, the need to study state was felt, with Theda Scorpilos bringing the state back in. Even Rajni Kothari used state in his later writings, most important being the state against the people. Now we want to wind up this lecture. Thank you so much for your attention.